talks about the funds and NYCHA not being funded properly and only getting a certain amount that it's entitled. But the Democrats in New York, what they have done to private landlords under rent regulation is, and the lack of money that they're going to be able to recoup through investment and rents, and you know, they're going to be falling into disrepair. They're actually going to look like NYCHA properties through actions by the state legislature and the New York City Council. But you know, they won't talk about that. That rent regulation is a great thing, but when the funding's needed, Mr. Schwartz, is NYCHA's problem a funding problem?
It's a complicated problem, but one of the reasons NYCHA's in the position it's in now is that it did not care for the facilities that it had. It didn't train people. It didn't. They don't maintain. The oldest heating system in the NYCHA portfolio is about 65 years old, and it's still working beautifully today, where it was when I left in 2019. It was working beautifully because the maintenance people at that particular facility took care of it.
And that's based facility on facility, right? I mean, because the reason you were there is because HUD, Southern District of New York, NYCHA, and the City of New York came to an agreement to put you there because of its unacceptable living conditions, including mold exposure, elevator outages, and unreliable heating and air conditioning, correct?
Yes, and without plans to fix it. They didn't have an approach, and what we did was build an approach in each of those areas. As I said, despite the corruption, despite the other problems, there were important successes. 7,000 fans on buildings, and cleaning the vents that had not been cleaned for 60 years. I don't even know if you could call them vents after 60 years. But NYCHA put together a team that did that job on budget, on time, and mold complaints went down 50% in those buildings. So they had, if they've directed correctly, if they've used the analytics, if they have a plan, you can get things done.
And I'm a supporter of housing authorities. My law firm, my family law firm was the representative of the Islip Town Housing Authority, and they did great work, and they still continue to do great work. So I'm not saying housing authorities are bad, but you talk. We heard from the previous member, and you talk about the amount of buildings under NYCHA's control, and you mentioned there are people who manage some of the buildings know what they're doing, but there are other people, bad actors, or corruption. I mean, those cases are true. I mean, there was a lot of people that pled to stealing money from NYCHA, so there was obviously corruption going on there. When you need this housing for people, when you need honest living conditions, and there is federal tax dollars going that way, when is, okay, some buildings managers do a good job, some building managers don't do a good job. When do we hit that element where there's so many people living here, there's so much money being spent here, nothing seems to be getting? A specific example, in November of last year, there was a explosion by the building partially collapsed on Alexander Avenue because of an explosion in a boiler room. Nobody was hurt, thank God, but 84 residents were displaced. And that boiler issue had been known since 2018. When do situations like this all of a sudden say, NYCHA as a whole with these with the individual building operators, some doing good, some of them not doing good, when does it all of a sudden say, okay, HUD or somebody else needs to take over? I mean, the original plan for the oversight, which you had, was for 5 years. So much stuff wasn't addressed that has to continue. When is enough time, and we have to change what we're doing?
I don't know any precise answer to that, but there is a combination you can do. One of the ways we improved the heating at NYCHA is to have outside contractors maintain the facilities rather than having NYCHA employees do it. And the record shows that when we brought in the private sector, they took care of the maintenance, and the operation work more
Mr.
effectively.
Schwartz, I'm sorry to cut you off, my time's out, but maybe we should get you back over there to manage things. It sounds like you have some good ideas.
Gentleman from New York yields. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Green, the ranking member of the Subcommittee on Oversight.